I've been learning some interesting and disturbing things about the mouse utopia experiments. It seems that they didn't really replicate very well, and I've actually dug up a couple examples of failed or quasi-failed replications of the original mouse utopia work, which doesn't really bode well. There are also things he didn't do, which is suggestive of other factors that may have been at play, such as the possibility of infectious diseases which can cause sterility in mice. Only one of his mouse universes actually yielded the mutational meltdown, and that was universe 25. He doesn't really talk about the other universes in the other experiments in his book, and he kept very poor notes as well. So could it be that the mouse utopia stuff doesn't actually replicate? Could it be another victim of the replication crisis? This is an interesting possibility that I've now started to take very seriously. It doesn't mean that epistatic mutational meltdown isn't a real problem, because don't forget we have experimental work which shows that if you actually introduce NLG entry mutants to fitness codependent mice, you can cause them to do all sorts of pathological things, so perhaps to fortuitous initial conditions, he might actually have got the mutational meltdown, such as having a highly inbred founding strain who had a high frequency of this mutation to begin with. But it seems that under the uncontrolled pre-genetics type behavioural sync paradigm that Calhoun was working in, it was very difficult to get this effect. It might be that if you were to set it up with genetically controlled initial conditions, you could the effect every single time. That's something worth investigating. But what it does mean that we should take Calhoun's work with a serious pinch of salt, because it does seem at best it only partially replicates insofar as only one of the dissertations that I've managed to get hold of show partial replication of some of the psychosis in a pilot study they did based on Calhoun's work, and were not able to replicate the collapse that Calhoun observed in universe 25. And there's another thesis which shows no evidence of the collapse at all, actually just shows the colony just goes on and on and on and on and on indefinitely. I mean, there could have been a problem eventually. There's like a waiting time issue. How long do you have to wait to get spiked for mutations? If they're very rare, if they make up only a small proportion of the overall mutational spectrum, and the probability of getting them is extremely rare, and it might be that you need a long waiting time to actually get them, and it might be these experiments are not conducted under long enough time periods. It might be that you need to run them for multiple generations, like a decade or something, to really get the effect. But I think setting up the experiments on a much smaller scale a bit the group at Cardiff did, where they actually just took these small collections of mice, and they knew all the genotypes of the mice, wild types and then a couple of mutants, and they knew exactly what mutations were going on, and they could reverse the effect of mutations. They could reverse all the effects. These sort of experiments give us proof positive of the pathway through which negative social epistoses is transmitted. They were high-quality experiments.